Are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle separating? That is a speculation that has been fueling around the internet the last couple of days, ever since Radar Online published this article talking about how Harry and Meghan are really going their separate ways. Definitely professionally. Personally is another matter, but it sounds like the couple are on very different tracks of life and are having a pretty difficult time. And who can entirely blame them? They have no relationship with either side of their family, really. They've lost a lot of friends along the way, both deliberately and accidentally. Their business empire, which was touted as being almost $1 billion enterprise, is crumbling underneath their feet. They've lost the Spotify deal. Netflix is tenuous. Their publication deal is tenuous because they published Harry's book and that was a major success. But Meghan Markle's book, The Bench, not so much. And so there's a lot of stresses going on in their life right now. And I don't think anybody would be particularly surprised if they are perhaps in the process of separating or have already separated their lives to a certain extent. Sadly for Harry and Meghan, given how they came together and all their actions and everything, nobody was really ever anticipating this marriage lasting a long time. Despite their proclamations that they had the greatest love story in the history of mankind, nobody's really buying it. So it appears that people are more likely to believe this growing rumor. But what are the facts behind it and what can we perhaps read into it? Because obviously people can reach a lot of various conclusions and we'll be doing some speculation on this video for sure. But what do we know about Harry and Meghan? Well, they don't really have anything in common and they don't have a great foundation for a marriage. If they are in the process of separating, it would not be a great surprise to anyone except for perhaps Harry and Meghan themselves. So we're going to explore this topic in today's video, going through all the various articles and discussion points and all the different signs and signals that perhaps things aren't well in the land of Sussex. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news, sometimes a little bit of gossip. So if you guys want to subscribe, that'd be awesome. I also have a weekly newsletter and a fashion channel devoted to royal. So I'd love to see you guys on either one of there. The newsletter goes over all the royal news of the week. And before we get into this whole bit with Harry and Meghan, just an FYI, we will be seeing a little less of the royals for the next about 6 weeks as many families go on vacation. Yes, even royals take some time off. And now I know that we all think, well, they just get up and they just go into the office one day a week. And why is that so hard? Well, I don't know about you, but there are not cameras that follow me around when I'm doing my work and I don't have to interact with a bunch of people and be on my best behavior. Luckily for me, I have editing. The royals aren't so lucky. So they will be taking a little bit of the break. The Wales' kids are also on school break as well. So we'll be seeing this across Europe. So things may slow down a smidge in royal land, but I've got a lot of videos coming up, including one introducing the Norwegian royals, and I'll go through a lot of the other royal families as well. I'm super excited for that. But this rumor about Harry and Meghan, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And let me be clear. Radar Online is a gossip rag. Can we believe everything that's in it? No. But is a broken watch right twice a day? Why, yes it is. And I believe there's sometimes where things, even in the gossip rags, can be right. And why I think this could maybe have some legs is that we keep seeing it pop up in major publications. I just saw it in The Spectator, which I would say is a fairly reputable piece. It was obviously an opinion piece just talking about the Radar Online thing. But these other publications too are getting little bits and pieces that tell them as well that things aren't good in Sussex land. So just to get into it real quick, let's go over the Radar Online article because this was the one that really started it all. So it says they're trying to figure out what hit them, an insider claimed. Harry doesn't fit into Meghan's tacky Tinseltown world, they added, saying he needs to find himself. Anybody surprised by that? No. Looking ahead, Harry is planning a trip to Africa to film a documentary for which his wife will not be present. The anticipated solo trip may be just what Harry needs, as he considers the continent his second home and a place where he feels most like himself. Which is very apt because basically it's saying he does not feel like himself when he's in California with his wife and family. Just throwing that out there. Meanwhile, insiders say that Meghan has a new super agent determined to keep her booked and busy. She's looking to establish her own brand and make millions. For the first time, they're truly on divergent professional paths.
And I forgot to add when I was filming, but Omid Scobie, Meghan Markle's quote-unquote friend, which is what basically all publications refer to him as, is also trying to push back against it. And I think for him, this has been a rather epic fail, but who can be surprised? So on Twitter, he pushed back against these claims, stating that I'm not sure everyone realizes what kind of outlet Radar is. If you believe the site's marriage on the rocks nonsense, then you would also believe there are other royal scoops. And he shows a couple of titles talking about Catherine and William, Catherine and Camilla, and then we also have Andrew in there as well. So what Omid Scobie fails to recognize, though, is that none of those stories gained mainstream traction because there was no truth to them. Nobody was going to report on something that everybody knew wasn't the truth. However, there is a kernel of truth to the Harry and Meghan rumors. Ergo, people are more interested in talking about it and reporting on it because they're like, you know what? I have a source also saying other things that are not looking too good for them, and who would be surprised? And what I thought was rather telling as well is that when a Twitter profile named Carol responded to him, this person said, you never felt the need to debunk those other scoops though, only this one. Why? Omid clapped back. Did any mainstream outlets pick up on those stories and present the need to comment? No. Scuttle off now. Well, I'm like, well, you obviously just proved your point that maybe there's some truth to these because the other mainstream news outlets didn't pick up on the story, but they picked up on this one. Now, you could say it's because it's Harry and Meghan, but you could also say it's because they were thinking, well, there might be some truth to this. And also news, if you didn't know, because I didn't know this until I was looking about it and thinking about him today, because usually I don't really give him the time of day. Omid Scobie left his position as the real exclusive editor of Yahoo News, Yahoo UK. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I felt like to him that was a bit of an ego boost, but obviously it sort of crashed and burned as well. So anyways, I thought that was rather interesting news if you did not know that. Now back to Harry and Meghan.
So yes, professionally, it seems like they are somewhat separating. So they had one official project together, and that was their Netflix documentary series. That's the one they did together. Harry's book was by himself. Meghan's podcast Archetypes was pretty much by herself as well. Harry popped in from time to time. Meghan really didn't have any involvement in any of the publicity surrounding Harry's book. And you could say between their two solo projects, Harry's was the most successful, really. Meghan's not so much. Spotify dropped them in part because of Meghan Markle. And Meghan Markle bared the brunt of the loss of that deal. Now, you could say it was fully Meghan's fault, or you could say it's unfair that most of the blame has been on Meghan, but she really was the public face of their Spotify deal. And apparently Harry's ideas were just so incredibly dumb that Spotify was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. His idea, if you don't remember, is to basically get the leaders of the world, get them into an interview space, a very, very private and intimate interview space, and ask them, what about your childhood trauma? Can you tell me about that time people made fun of you in school, Vladimir Putin? Yeah, Vladimir Putin would not answer that question, Harry. This guy does mock things where he's wrestling tigers. Why in the world would you think he's gonna go over there and go, yeah, they made fun of my big nose in elementary school? No, of course he wouldn't do that. Why would he do that? But Harry and Meghan have both done something to themselves is where they've increased their own narcissistic tendencies. Meghan is a narcissist. We all struggle with narcissism. That's part of our sin nature. But Harry's, I think, was exemplified by Meghan's. And because of this, they become so self-involved that Harry thinks everybody has emotional childhood trauma that they want to endlessly discuss on national television or international television. And Meghan Markle's obsessed with her victim narrative. This woman, even though she went to some of the best private schools in Los Angeles, even though she went to a very well-respected college, even though she had an actual full-time role on a television show, even though she married royalty, you need to still feel bad for her. She didn't get the best slot in life. I've met people who lived out in slums and stuff. I don't feel an ounce sorry for Meghan Markle. Nope, I don't feel like she is a victim at all, except for a victim of her own circumstances and her own machinations. So that was the Radar piece that really started it all. And here are the couple tidbits that we're getting from other publications. We've heard from one gossip website that they've sold their house. Another one said they're under, this was from page 6, under financial stress. They have different career aspirations. They're living different lives, different life goals, family drama, and quote unquote emotional issues. That one is huge, and that one came from page 6. This is the first acknowledgement that perhaps it's not just Harry that's the issue, it's Meghan too. So here are some of the quotes from page 6, because page 6 tried to push back against this narrative, and I don't think they really succeeded. A source said, "It's not true, it's literally made up." All you had to say was, "It's not true." I always feel like Meghan Markle and Harry's PR team is so juvenile. They make such juvenile statements as like, they over dramatize everything. They could just say it's not true. You don't have to add, "It's literally made up," because that doesn't need to be added. It says the source added that the Sussexes, who moved to Montecito, California in March 2020 after stepping back as senior members of the royal family, are under tremendous financial pressure to fund their lavish California lifestyle, including their $14 million mansion and huge security costs. That stress, coupled with their emotional issues, has likely made life a living hell. So page 6 is telling us that they're not separating, yet they're living in a living hell. I mean, like the separation there is massive. It's like you're saying one thing and like saying another at the same time. Like, what are you doing? You can't say it's literally not true and tell us those two people are living in literally hell. Because number one, they're not. Number two, it's a hell of their own making. They did not need a $14 million mansion. That was at the time. Now, granted, I can't remember if they had actually secured one of their deals yet. I think they had. But at the time, Harry was only worth at most $30 million. And most of that was tied up probably in trusts. And they purchased a house worth half of their net worth without having all this production stuff behind it. There are actors who make a lot more than they do living in $3 to $4 to $5 million homes. Them having to go to such an extreme. And then on top of that, during their reality TV show, their interviews were filmed in a house 2 times that cost. So $30 million house. So Meghan Markle very much has always had these visions of grandeur when it comes to her life, so that even filming in their $15 million mansion, $14 million mansion is not enough. No, they need a $30 million mansion to film their interviews in, which is ridiculous. Unbelievably dumb. It was a waste of money because they had to pay to rent out that space when they could do it in their home for free. So it raises all these questions, and I know a lot of people are talking about how they've sold their home. Usually when it comes to selling a home, usually, not all the time, usually there are a lot of records in California regarding that, so I feel like we would have heard officially if they had sold their home. But I always thought that home was way too ostentatious for them, way too much money based on what they were going to make. Because you gotta remember, Meghan Markle was a middling actress on a middling TV series. Now, I've watched a bit of Suits and clips online, and I've watched the first full episode, which I'll give you my review on very soon. And looking at it, I was surprised to realize that they only had 16 episodes a season. So it wasn't even a full order that most regular shows get on network shows, which is about 22 to 24 episodes. So that meant Meghan's shooting year was shorter than her peers in a lot of ways on network television, and she had a supporting role. So again, she didn't have that much money to pull from. Harry didn't have much money to pull from, and they weren't going to be raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. But they thought they were. They thought they had the golden ticket. They thought they had the perfect life mapped out. And just to take a couple of steps back, I think this was Meghan's grand vision from the beginning. Now, I don't know if she really wanted to try to make the royal thing work or not, but I think she was dedicated to, as soon as she knew it wasn't going to work, she wanted her out and she wanted to go back to Hollywood, and she wanted to allow this royal title to make up for the fact that she was a lack of talent to begin with and she could never make it on her own. She thought the royal title would change Hollywood's perception of her, which it did for a period of time. So she got Harry on this train. They're treating me terribly. We need to move. We need to leave. The royal family's awful. The monarchy's awful. The press, everything. So Harry's like, oh, okay. And he takes her across the pond. They spend some time in Canada. She's machinating all these things behind them. And they made their first absolutely critical error, which is thinking that their Megxit demands would be honored from the get-go, which they were not. The monarchy's like, we can't do half and a half out. I'm so sorry, can't do that. And Harry and Meghan, I think, were shocked by that. They really thought they could do their half in, half out thing. And when the monarchy's like, no, you can't do that, I think they were really stuck there for a minute. But it did work to Meghan's favor in a certain extent, because Meghan still thought that if she could work with the monarchy and yet do all this Hollywood stuff on the side, that she could really bolster herself all the time and promote on both sides. But of course, a monarchy is not about promoting yourself. It's about supporting the institution, the monarch, the government, the country, the culture, the heritage, all these sorts of things, which had nothing to do with Meghan Markle's Hollywood ambitions. So they made these demands, which were rejected. And I think Harry was then solely leaning on his wife for this whole endeavor. It was her idea, I'm sure. I know they say, oh, but Harry's like, well, I wanted to do it too. I was like, BS, bud. You're living her dream, not yours. We all know that. We're not idiots. You're the one who really is, but we're not. We all know that this was her dream, is to be in Hollywood, be taken seriously by Hollywood. She's wanted this since the get-go. You're the only guy who apparently didn't know that. And so she was able to get him to come to California, which, to be fair, makes sense. She didn't really have a ton of connections in Vancouver. Most of her friends are in Los Angeles or Toronto, so it made sense for her to move there. And then they were able to secure all these deals. And these deals, on the face of it, looked good. I'm like, dang, $20 million from Spotify, maybe $100 million for Netflix, and then crickets. We got one episode from Spotify where they were both on it, and crickets for a year and a half until we got confirmation that yes, Meghan Markle does have a podcast coming. And I'm like, a year and a half? I produce 100+ videos in a year and a half on a channel, just myself. Just myself, a couple lights, a camera, computer. I do it all myself, and it took you a year and a half to do a single podcast? Really? Which doesn't require like investigative research. Like, I have a history podcast idea in my head and I want to get it to the finish line, and I'm super excited about it, and will require, I think, more production value, hoping I can get the stuff I want. But I would need that level of lead time, because there's a whole bunch of research I would want to do or have somebody help me do in order to make the podcast a success and make it what I want it to be. Harry and Meghan just basically interviewed people, asked a couple of questions of some quote-unquote experts. Now, granted, most of those people are probably experts, but Meghan Markle definitely did not interview them, and cobbled it all together and pushed it out. Like, there was nothing to this podcast in terms of needing to have a longer lead time than they had. They had way too long a lead time. You guys needed 6 weeks, not like 16 months. And so Spotify, I think, was already starting to get a bit nervous, and Harry was supposed to be more a part of this too. And I think Harry just wasn't interested in it. There's another thing talking about where Harry was just not interested in doing the podcast thing. And it's like, well, why did you guys sign a podcast deal if the guy doesn't want to be a podcaster? Well, of course that's going to end in disaster, because the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't like the medium. If he doesn't like the medium, then he can't create good content for the medium. I like YouTube. I watch YouTube. I watch a lot of other YouTube channels. And so it gives me ideas for my own. And I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the storytelling that you can have via audio form on a podcast. And if Harry doesn't like it, that's fine. But then why in the world are the two of you signing a podcast deal? Because part of the reason why Spotify dropped them is not only was Meghan Markle's podcast not as successful as she wanted it to be, they couldn't get Harry to do something. And between the two, they're like, why are we paying these yahoos upwards of $20 million to sit on their butts and create 12 episodes worth of content after 2.5 years? So they were dropped. And that adds stress to a relationship. But you're also, again, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole when it comes to Harry. Harry never wanted to be a producer. He never talked about going to Hollywood, being a producer, being an actor, being in the creative industry. He never talked about any of that. He wanted to support the soldiers. And you took him basically away from that and shoved him into the Hollywood bubble. And I know people don't like Harry anymore, and I understand it. And I think he's done some awful, terrible things. But at the same time, I can also see this being a result of a year plus of Meghan Markle manipulating him. Meghan Markle scratching at his spare wound, his mother wound as well, going, well, you're better than William. Ugh, they don't recognize you. You're more popular than the Queen. And they're going to put you in the second spot. How dare they? And I think those kind of things started to rile up this anger in Harry that was somewhat there, but she really raked her nails down the scab and brought out the spare monster. Basically, if you get it. She brought out this spare monster that was so angry, embittered, vengeful, rageful about his brother's family, and the role his brother has that his brother cannot control. William cannot control being the heir any more than Harry can control being the spare. What was William supposed to do? Get out of the way because of the greatness of Meghan Markle? Because what Harry was struggling with as well, and part of the reason why they did this Mexican thing, is that Harry was under the delusion that Meghan was the next Diana. And Harry and Meghan together, along with Sunshine Sachs propping them up constantly, was believing that Meghan Markle was the next Diana and that she was the star of the monarchy. And the monarchy just wasn't appreciating her talent. And they weren't appreciating her vision and all these things, and she was rubbing everybody the wrong way. But the UK is different than Hollywood, number one, because it's actually deeper than being vapid and shallow, which is what Hollywood is. And so there were different skill sets required, which Meghan Markle refused to learn. She just thought she was great at everything. And she said, I think at one point in the documentary, she's like, well, I gave it all. I did the best I could. It's like, well, you didn't because you failed, honey. You obviously did something wrong. But nothing is ever Harry and Meghan's fault. And for two adults with two children, that's going to end badly at some point because you have to acknowledge failure and your contribution to that failure. I have failed in my life. I can tell you exactly how I failed, exactly how I tried to amend things. Actually, part of this channel, the growth and the dedication to this channel came out of a professional failure. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I am going to pick myself up and I'm going to try to do this thing so I can prove something to myself. And needless to say, I think I did pretty good at it. But that required self-reflection and recognizing a failure and saying, I'm going to change it. So I did. But Harry and Meghan can't do that. And when it comes to their relationship, these two people are told us constantly that they were madly in love. The most insane, beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, perfect love story in the history of mankind. They could not stop touching each other. The PDA from day one was excessive. That was one of the first things people noticed. I believe in my interview with Valentine Lowe, that was one of the first things he said that everybody kind of took stock of, was that they could not stop petting each other. They were just constantly touching. And then you had to wrap themselves around in this fantasy love story. So Harry whisked Meghan off to Canada to save her and then took her down to California to find refuge. So they're reenacting this fairy tale in their own minds. But the problem is, no marriage is a fairy tale. The fairy tale bubble will burst. And I think that's what's happening here. Not only are they diverting professionally, and remember, these are two people who did everything together. They told us they were like salt and pepper. There's a tree in their front yard that's entwined together, and that's them. And that they had in their office matching, they had a desk and they had two matching chairs like thrones, as the cut author described it. So these are two people who are constantly together. But now that they're diverting professionally, personally can't be far behind because they've masked everything together. And I think the fairy tale delusion that they've surrounded themselves with has burst. It was all fine and good when they were getting deals left and right. Doors were opening for them in Hollywood and people were calling them constantly. But I think the calls have died down. I don't think anybody is as interested in the brand of Harry and Meghan. And because of that, they are now stuck. Their delusional bubble has burst and the couple are basically sitting there without a goal, without a purpose. What I noticed through reading a lot of these articles is that, well, there's no future. They have no future goal. What are they aiming for? Meghan's aiming for the most shallow thing possible. I just want to make millions of dollars. Doing what? Adding what? Contributing what to the world? It's not just about making money. You need to add value to what you're doing. And I don't think that's what Meghan is doing. And I think that's part of the reason why so much of this has failed, is that Meghan is all about the shallow, just relentless pursuit of money. And you can, obviously, there's some people who are good at that, but I think those are people like who can run the financial stuff really well, which Meghan Markle cannot do. In their industry, you need talent, creativity, drive, which I don't think she has. She just wants to make the money the easiest, simplest way possible. She doesn't want to work hard for it. She didn't want to hone her craft as an actress. She didn't want to make her blog better. She didn't go beyond. There was nothing interesting and unique about the TIG. It was just a vapid, silly blog. There just wasn't anything of depth to it. And so she can recreate it again, but will it even be that successful? I don't know. You already have Goop. Are they just going to be a knockoff of Goop? Well, I mean, that's pretty lame. That's pretty uninspiring. I thought you were an actress that could create something unique. Apparently not. But I also think, looking at Harry's side, Harry went through all of this, gave up everything. Everything. His family, his friends, his relationships, his country, his heritage, his people, his culture, all this stuff to pursue Meghan Markle's dreams in Hollywood. And what I think is also bursting his bubble, and what could be slowly starting to lead to their separation, is Harry's belief that Meghan had this. That Meghan, she knew everything. He could just rely on her. That he didn't have to think. He didn't have to do. He could just rely on Meghan Markle. And because she's so smart, she was this in the Hollywood. She was this great actress and everything like that. Because Harry truly believed, I think, she was a great actress. And her being interested in him was a huge ego boost to him. He mentioned in his book that when he told Catherine and William, who were apparently huge Suits fans, I don't really buy that he was dating Meghan Markle, William went, F off, as if to say, you're joking, right? No way, no way. The Brits say F off. And that's how Harry described it. And it was such, I think, an ego boost to him and everything. And that I think there was something in him that was like so relieved that he could rely on Meghan Markle to fix things, to do things for him that apparently he couldn't do. And what I think he's finding out is that the lights of Hollywood, the glamour that he thought enveloped Meghan's life, was never really there. She was never that successful. And relying on her has been disastrous for him in a lot of ways. All these doors have slammed in their faces. He's followed her advice time and time again, only to have it blow up in his face, have him become a source of mockery to the whole world. And yes, he's still convinced a lot of it is the press. But I think sometimes we see that glimpse of Harry's like, what did I do? One of the best examples, I think, is the UN thing, where he went there to do the UN speech and he let go of her hand after they sat down. And she grabbed his hand with both of hers and dragged it onto his lap. And he just looked severely uncomfortable. And I think you see those echoes in his mind going, what did I do? How did it come to this? How did I go from being the most popular the world everybody wanted to talk to, everybody wanted to be with, the cool guy on the street, to this, to being dragged around by my wife to do X, Y, and Z? Yes, is he somewhat still enamored with her? Probably. But is the shine wearing off? I think it really is. And that's why I think there are a lot of credence to these rumors. We also have the financial issue. I think they're living well beyond their means, like I said. In addition to just their house, their security needs. They still have security procedures like they're royals. So for example, they have people chauffeuring them everywhere, opening their car door. I would bet that would cost a couple $1 million a year, when they could probably have that easily and just have people accompany them to certain things, maybe come by the house from time to time. They don't need 24/7 security in a gated neighborhood. Everybody in the celebrity sphere deals with stalkers. Harry and Meghan are no exception. They need to get over their belief that they're all that special in that area. They really, really do. And so I think all of this comes together. You see all the fraughtness, all the disasters, all the chaos, and it's just easy to see where separation might not be too far in the offing. Now, that's terrible in terms of family relationships and everything between them and their children. I have a feeling this will be a very nasty, nasty divorce. When it does happen, I've always said they've only would last 5 years. Apparently, I'm kind of on the money, even though they haven't officially done anything. If these rumors have any credence, then I was kind of right on the money. So Harry and Meghan, I think, are in a disastrous situation. In addition, just to mention this as well, they really have nothing in common. These are two people who could not be more different. Meghan is a college-educated woman. Harry barely graduated high school. They don't have any common outdoor interests in terms of like he liked to hunt, she didn't. I think she likes to shop, he probably doesn't. Like they have a very, very different lifestyle from each other. And I think that's coming back to bite them anymore. Meghan wants this vapid, vain world of Hollywood. And whereas Harry's somewhat attracted to it, I think he misses being with the average person, the Invictus Games, the soldiers, those sorts of things. He misses that. Looking at all these reports and knowing that they have nothing in common, they have financial woes, professional woes, all these sorts of things. I think what's so evident is that everybody knew that this wouldn't work out. His family knew, his friends knew, everybody knew that this was doomed to failure. And it'll be interesting to see if Harry recognizes it as well, or when Harry does recognize it, because at this point things are only going downhill and I don't see them getting any better for them anytime soon. The Invictus Games documentary, it could be a huge win or it could be a massive loss, and they could also see a huge disaster at the Invictus Games themselves as people tune out of Harry and Meghan, don't want to support them, don't want to support their causes. Harry may find himself really in a bad situation and really regretting the day he ever met Meghan Markle. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of all these rumors, because I think they're all rumors. They're all rumors, but usually there's a kernel of truth there, especially when the echo chamber continues to just grow and grow. This is about the 3rd video I've done on this topic over the last several months, and it's just something that's not going away. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.